Olivia, darling, you can't possibly expect us to keep housing your situation. What will the Astors think when they come for the charity gala? Victoria's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively at my 7-year-old son's toys scattered across what used to be our room. My sister-in-law's voice dripped with the same false sweetness she'd used ever since marrying my brother James. I clutched Tommy's worn teddy bear, the last gift from his father before the accident, and tried to keep my voice steady. Victoria, we talked about this. James promised we could stay until I got back on my feet. It's only been 3 months. Yes, well, things change. She adjusted her designer blazer, a motion I'd seen her practice in the mirror countless times. James agrees it's time for you to find your own place. We have a reputation to maintain. My heart sank. Of course James agreed. He never could stand up to his wife, not since she helped him land the partnership at her father's investment firm. The same firm that had rejected my late husband Michael's application years ago for being too working class. We have nowhere else to go, I said, hating how my voice cracked. Tommy just started school here. Not my problem. Victoria's smile turned sharp. I need this room for my new meditation space. The life coach says it's essential for maintaining my influencer aesthetic. You have until Friday. That was 2 days away. I looked around the small guest room that had become our sanctuary after Michael's death left us drowning in medical bills. Everything we owned fit into 3 boxes and a small suitcase. It wasn't much, but it was all Tommy had left of his old life. What about the trust? I asked quietly. Michael was James's brother too. Surely some of the family money. Victoria's laugh cut through me like glass. Oh honey, that money is for real family members, not charity cases who married in. Besides, James has already allocated those funds for my new charity foundation, Victoria's Vision, helping the truly deserving poor. She emphasized the word with a smirk that made it clear which category she thought we fell into. I wanted to scream to remind her that I'd known James since college, long before she swept in with her family connections and social climbing schemes. I wanted to tell her about all the times Michael and James had sworn to always take care of each other's families. But I knew it would fall on deaf ears. That night, as I tucked Tommy into bed, his small voice broke my heart. Mommy, are we really leaving Uncle James's house? Where will we go? I pulled him close, breathing in his familiar scent of crayons and the apple shampoo he loved. We'll figure something out, sweetheart. We always do. But I like my new school, he whispered. And Uncle James promised to teach me chess like Daddy used to play. I blinked back tears. James hadn't played chess with Tommy once since we moved in. He was too busy attending Victoria's endless social events, parading around as the perfect power couple. The next day, I came home from my temporary job at the local diner to find our belongings piled unceremoniously in the driveway. Victoria stood in the doorway, surrounded by a group of women in expensive yoga wear. Oh good, you're here, she called out, not even trying to hide her satisfaction. We needed the space for my mindfulness workshop. These ladies paid top dollar for an authentic wellness experience. I watched as one of the women took a selfie in front of our pathetic pile of boxes, probably for her Instagram story about giving back to the community. My hands shook as I loaded our life into the back of my old Honda Civic, Tommy's confused questions echoing in my ears. That night, parked behind the 24-hour Walmart, I held my sleeping son and made a silent promise. Somehow, someway, I would give him back the stability he deserved. I just didn't know that opportunity would come so soon or from such an unexpected direction. What Victoria didn't know, what even James didn't know, was that the last time Michael and I had dinner with them, nearly a year before his diagnosis, Victoria had let something slip after too many glasses of wine. Something about creative accounting at her father's firm, about moving money around to make certain wealthy clients' problems disappear. I kept that information to myself, even after they threw us out like yesterday's trash. But now, as I scrolled through my phone's photos and found the picture I'd taken of Victoria's carelessly discarded paperwork that night, I realized I was holding on to something far more valuable than family money. The next morning, as I dropped Tommy off at his new school across town, my phone buzzed with a news alert. FBI raids prominent investment firm. I clicked the link, and there it was. Victoria's father's company was under investigation for massive fraud. My phone rang almost immediately. Victoria's name flashed on the screen, and for the first time since she'd married my brother, I heard real fear in her voice. "Olivia," she said, dropping all pretense of superiority. "We need to talk. Now." I looked at the photo on my phone again, the one showing exactly where the bodies were buried in Victoria's perfect world. "Yes," I replied calmly. "I suppose we do." I chose to meet Victoria at a small coffee shop across town, far from her usual luxury haunts. The irony wasn't lost on me as she slipped in wearing oversized sunglasses and a plain black hoodie, the kind of common clothing she'd always mocked me for wearing. "You look terrible," I'd observed, noting her shaking hands as she clutched her designer purse. Gone was the perfectly coiffed social media queen who had thrown my son's belongings onto her driveway just 3 weeks ago. "They arrested Daddy this morning," she whispered, glancing nervously around the cafe. "James is being questioned by the FBI. They're saying something about money laundering, tax evasion. Olivia, they're freezing all our accounts." I took a slow sip of my coffee, remembering the night Tommy and I spent in our car because the cheap motel she had generously recommended was full. "How unfortunate," I replied. "What does this have to do with me?" Her composure cracked. "Don't play dumb. I know you were there that night, the night I was talking about the special accounts. James said you might have seen something." She leaned forward, desperation evident in her voice. "We need those documents back. The ones that disappeared from my desk." "You mean the ones showing how your father's firm helped billionaires hide their money in offshore accounts?" I pulled out my phone, watching her face pale as I showed her the photo. "The same documents you were so carelessly waving around while bragging about your family's influence." "Please," she whispered, her carefully maintained facade crumbling completely. "Those papers proved Daddy was just following orders from the board. Without them, he'll take the fall for everything. James could go to prison too." "James?" I raised an eyebrow. "My brother, who stood by while you threw his nephew out on the street. That James." Victoria's hands twisted in her lap. "I know how it looks, but it wasn't personal. We had an image to maintain, a lifestyle." "A lifestyle built on stolen money," I interrupted. "While Tommy and I struggled to afford basic necessities, you were hosting parties with money that belonged to other people." "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small. "Name your price. Once this blows over, we can." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. "You still don't get it, do you? You think everything can be bought and sold. That's exactly why you're in this mess." "Then why did you agree to meet me?" I pulled out a thick manila envelope and placed it on the table. "Because despite everything, Tommy still asks about his Uncle James. Because somewhere under all that designer clothing and fake charity work, you're still my brother's wife." Victoria reached for the envelope, but I held it firm. "But understand this, my help comes with conditions." "Anything," she said quickly, too quickly. "First, you're going to transfer ownership of the guest house, the one you turned into your wellness space, back to James's family trust, where it belonged before you convinced him to sign it over to you. Tommy and I will live there, rent-free, for as long as we need." She nodded frantically. "Done." "What else?" "Second, you're going to publicly apologize. To me, to Tommy, and to all the other families your father's firm has hurt. No PR spin, no social media aesthetic. Just the truth." "But my followers are the least of your concerns right now," I cut in. "Finally, you're going to start actually helping people. Not with fancy galas and photo ops, but with real work. The kind that doesn't come with a hashtag." Victoria stared at me for a long moment. I could almost see her weighing her options, calculating if there was another way out. Finally, she nodded. "The papers, they'll help prove Daddy was just following orders. They'll show he wasn't the mastermind," I confirmed. "But he wasn't innocent either. None of you were." As I stood to leave, Victoria grabbed my wrist. "Why didn't you turn these over to the FBI right away? You could have ruined us weeks ago." I thought about Tommy, about the lessons I wanted to teach him. Because revenge might feel good for a moment, but justice lasts longer. Sometimes the best way to change people is to show them a better way. "I don't deserve your help," she admitted quietly. "No," I agreed. "You don't. But Tommy deserves his family, and James, despite his mistakes, deserves a chance to make things right." I left her sitting there, the envelope containing her family's potential salvation in her manicured hands. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from James, the first contact he had initiated since we were thrown out. "Can we talk?" It read. "Please." I looked up at the clear autumn sky, thinking about second chances and the power of choices. Yes, I typed back. We can talk. 6 months later, I stood in the guesthouse kitchen, watching Tommy and James play chess through the window. My brother was teaching him the same moves Michael used to practice, their heads bent together in concentration. It wasn't perfect, but it was something real, more real than all of Victoria's carefully curated family photos had ever been. The aftermath of the FBI investigation had shaken the foundations of Victoria's perfect world. Her father took a plea deal, his sentence reduced thanks to the evidence I provided showing the board's larger involvement. James avoided criminal charges, but had to step down from the firm. The scandal rocked their social circle, and Victoria's influencer empire crumbled overnight. But sometimes, losing everything helps you find what matters. More cookies, Uncle James. Tommy called out, his face brightening as James captured one of his pawns. Your mom's cookies. Absolutely, James replied, and I saw genuine warmth in his smile, the kind that had been missing during all those years he'd spent chasing Victoria's version of success. I heard the crunch of gravel and looked up to see Victoria walking toward the house. She wasn't wearing designer clothes anymore. Her community service at the local homeless shelter required more practical attire. The change in her went deeper than clothing, though. I brought the shelter's financial reports, she said as she entered, placing a folder on the counter. After her public apology had gone viral, she'd thrown herself into actual charity work, not for the photo ops or social media praise, but because somewhere along the way, she discovered she was good at it. We've got enough donations to expand the education program. I nodded, remembering how she'd once spent more on a single gala than the shelter's entire yearly budget. Tommy's class is doing a book drive for the Children's Corner. I know, she said with a slight smile. He told me yesterday when I was helping him with his math homework. She paused, watching James and Tommy through the window. I never thanked you properly, for not using those documents to destroy us completely. It wasn't about destruction, I replied, measuring coffee grounds for a fresh pot. It was about correction. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I found my old vision board while cleaning out the mansion, she said finally. All those magazine cutouts of perfect homes and luxury vacations. I actually thought that stuff would make me happy. And now? Now I know what real wealth looks like. She glanced meaningfully at Tommy and James. It looks like second chances. The doorbell rang, and I heard Tommy's excited footsteps as he ran to answer it. It was Laura, James's new girlfriend, a kindergarten teacher he'd met while volunteering at the shelter's after-school program. She wasn't anything like Victoria, and that was exactly what made her perfect for him. Later that evening, as we all sat around the dinner table, a simple meal, nothing like Victoria's elaborate dinner parties, I thought about how life has a way of teaching us what we need to learn. Victoria had lost her mansion but found her purpose. James had lost his prestigious job but rediscovered his family. And me, I'd lost my home but found something stronger. The power to forge change through compassion rather than revenge. Mom, Tommy tugged at my sleeve, can we show Aunt Victoria my science project tomorrow? She promised to help me make it better for the fair. I caught Victoria's eye across the table and saw tears threatening to spill. Of course, sweetie, I said. I think Aunt Victoria would love that. As I watched my son chattering excitedly about his project, I remembered something Michael used to say. True class isn't about what you have. It's about how you treat people who can't give you anything in return. Victoria had learned that lesson the hard way. But sometimes, the hardest lessons leave the most lasting impact. Victoria said quietly as she helped me with the dishes later. I used to think I was better than everyone else because of what I owned. Now I realize I was just empty inside, trying to fill the void with things instead of real connections. I handed her a plate to dry. The good thing about hitting bottom is you can rebuild on solid ground. She nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. We weren't best friends, and maybe we never would be. But we were family, not the picture-perfect kind she used to pretend to have, but the real kind, built on understanding, forgiveness, and growth. As I tucked Tommy into bed that night, he asked, "Are we rich now, Mom?" I thought about everything we'd gained and lost over the past months. We're rich in the ways that matter, honey. We have family, we have a home, and we have each other. Some people spend their whole lives chasing wealth and never find that kind of fortune. He smiled sleepily, clutching his teddy bear. The same one I held the day Victoria kicked us out. I like our kind of rich better, he mumbled as he drifted off. I kissed his forehead, silently agreeing. Sometimes life's greatest wealth comes disguised as loss, and its greatest victories wear the face of mercy rather than revenge.